Hey Pegasus,
Hey there, what's on your mind?
what does an atom look like?
It's kind of tricky to describe what an atom looks like because we can't actually see them with our eyes. They're way too small. But here's the basic idea. Imagine the center of the atom like the sun in our solar system. We call this the nucleus. Tiny particles called protons and neutrons hang out in the nucleus. Then you've got even tinier particles called electrons that zoom around the nucleus, kind of like planets orbiting a star. Would you like me to explain any of the parts of an atom in more detail?
Yes.
Alright, so let's talk about the nucleus, the heart of the atom. Really tiny, but it's where almost all of the atom's mass is. See, that's where you'll find the protons, which have a positive charge, and the neutrons, which have no charge at all. Want to know more about the nucleus, or would you rather hear about the electrons?
The nucleus.
So the nucleus is really dense. It's made up of those protons and neutrons I mentioned, and they're packed together super tight. Now, protons have a positive charge, and as you might guess, positive charges repel each other. But the nucleus stays together because of a powerful force called the strong nuclear force. That's the same force that keeps quarks together inside the protons and neutrons themselves.
Hey Pegasus, hey Pegasus,
Hey there, what's on your mind?
how do photons interact with consciousness?
Hey there, what's on your mind?
How do photons interact with consciousness?
That's a really interesting question. With a touch of philosophy, here's the thing. Photons are what allow us to see the world around us. When light, made up of photons, hits our eyes, it triggers a complex process that eventually leads to our brains interpreting those signals as images. So you could say that photons are kind of like the messengers that make our conscious experience of the world possible. Without them, we wouldn't be able to see anything.
Can you explain some more?
That's a really interesting question. With a touch of philosophy, here's the thing. Photons are what allow us to...
Hey Pegasus,
So I can explain more about how photons affect our consciousness, but it gets a little complicated. Here's the thing. When photons hit our eyes, they trigger a chemical reaction in our retinas. This reaction creates electrical signals that travel along the optic nerve to the visual cortex in our brains. It's in the visual cortex where things get really interesting. The brain starts interpreting those electrical signals, and that's how we form an image of what we're seeing. Without photons, we wouldn't have that initial signal to create the image.
hey Pegasus, hey Pegasus,
Hey there, what's on your mind?
what is photonic fragmentation?
Photonic fragmentation isn't a term that's widely used in physics or optics. It's possible that it's a newer or more specialized term. It could be related to something like the way light breaks up into different colors when it passes through a prism. Or maybe it refers to a hypothetical way of breaking down photons into smaller units. although that's not currently accepted by mainstream science. Do you know where you heard the term photonic fragmentation? That might help me explain it better.
Hey Pegasus.
Hey there, what's on your mind?
How do photons interact with shadows?
Photons don't really interact with shadows directly. It's more about how they interact with the objects that create shadows. You see, when photons hit an object, they can be absorbed, reflected, or transmitted. Shadows happen when an object blocks the path of photons from a light source. So the photons that would normally travel in a straight line are absorbed or reflected by the object, creating a dark area, the shadow.
Hey Pegasus. Hey Pegasus.
Hey there, what's on your mind?
Why does anything exist at all?
That's a seriously big question, one that philosophers and scientists have been pondering forever. The truth is, we don't really have a definitive answer. Some think it might have something to do with the laws of physics and the nature of the universe itself. Others lean towards more philosophical or even spiritual explanations. Do you want to hear about some of the ideas people have about why we exist?
Yes.
Help me.
What?
She's gonna jump.
Hey Pegasus. Hey Pegasus.
Hey there, what's on your mind?
What are the particles that make up empty space?
That's a great question. Turns out, even what we think of as empty space isn't actually totally empty. There are a few things going on in there. First, there are particles like photons, which are basically particles of light. Even in the darkest corners,
What are you doing?
I'm Gemini, a large language model, or an artificial intelligence if you prefer.